You're listening to Creative Campfire, where creatives like you come to talk shop, share stories, and light the path for one another. Whether you're here to learn, grow, or just feel a little less alone, welcome to the fire. Hey everyone, welcome back to the fire. I'm really excited about today's conversation. We've crossed paths like over the years, probably over the last 5 or 6 years. We've been in each other's worlds, but kind of never really collided. And we finally got to know each other inside this amazing social group called Social Life, run by the Appleyard, who I interviewed in episode 7, if you want to go check it out. And it turns out we both have squiggly line careers, if you will, or paths that have led us to where we are today. And that path ran through food photography, which is how we kind of orbit each other. But today we're both moving in different directions, but yet at the same time exploring this online leadership space. And I'm doing that through podcasting, and she's doing that through copywriting. And we're going to dive into all of this great conversation, how that happened, where she was, how she got back to where she is, why it's a full circle moment, listening to the inner leader that's in your head, but you're like, shh, I'm not ready for you. And so much more. Danae from Writing Pajamas is here with me today. So excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Shelly. So excited to be here as well. And yeah, loved your intro. It's like a full circle back moment. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this with you.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I mean, I remember when I said, oh, you were a food photographer like in the group,
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, but I'm doing copywriting now. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, how did that happen? And then when we back up the story, which is where we're going to kind of start, which is your teachers back when you were a teenager were like, you should be a writer. And then you said, nah, I'm going to go be a pharmacist.
Yeah. Always a rebel. Yeah, that's true.
I was just going to say, but I know that one of the things through the through line has always been writing. So do you want to kind of touch on, even though you pursued science and you were, working as a pharmacist, like how did writing continue to show up in your life?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you said, like everyone, when I was like at school, everyone thought I would follow this like more philosophical or literature or something path. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do that. And everyone thought like this isn't you. But I liked that path. And most of the time I've been writing for myself, usually not like okay, I was doing VSs at school, but not much like more that like, not more than that anyway. So yeah, and then I followed the path, like the pharmacy path, and I worked in that field for a while, and simultaneously I somehow like got some jobs, and I knew some people and they asked me to write for their blogs, like medical stuff and health stuff. And then at the pharmacy I was working at, they knew that I was good at writing, and they also asked me to write a few articles. And then I also worked as a medical writer. So even though like I was in this like science field, I was still writing, but mostly about like science and scientific stuff. But like, yeah, when I like pivoted to copywriting, it then hit me that, I've been writing all this time. I just wasn't that aware of that. Like I am writing. Yeah, so it was a bit like interesting to realize that.
So then how did that move from, I mean, I guess people are going to say like, how did you go from pharmacy to photography? I mean, they're both P words. I get that, but how did you go from one to the other?
That, yeah. So when I was at uni, I was like this like health freak, and I would like exercise very much and do everything like as healthy as possible. So I started to cook healthy meals and desserts and all this baked goodies, and I started to photograph them. So like while I was studying, like every day I was cooking something and photographing it and randomly posting it on Instagram. And then I saw so many people like taking beautiful photos of their foods and stuff. And I was like, wait, what's that? And that's how I got introduced in food photography. And for like 5 or 6 years, I was doing it purely as hobby, and I didn't even like think that this could be a profession. But I joined courses and became like better and better at that. And I was like, I would like to work with some clients, someday, while I was still working at my pharmacy job. And so the funny thing is, I was working at like a pharmacy, a retail pharmacy at the time, and we had this um, client who had some like spreads, like butter spreads, like peanut
Mm.
butter and stuff. And somehow we like got into the conversation, and I told them that I photograph like food for fun. And they asked me if I could like photograph their products, and that's how like the first like client came to be. And then from that, I said like, okay, I can do that. So yeah, I went on and like started pitching and trying to get clients, and like this whole like direction. And and then one agency, like they were working for food bloggers, and they wanted recipe development and photography, and they reached out to me through my website. So even though I wasn't doing it professionally, I had created a website which was pretty basic, like 500 words throughout the whole website, and it was mostly photos. But somehow they found me. I don't know how, because I didn't know about SEO or anything at that time, and they weren't even they were from the USA, so I don't know how they found me. But they reached out, and I started a collaboration with them that went on for months. So that's how I quit my pharmacy job and went full time like into food photography. And then
Wow.
I approached other clients and brands, and yeah, it's like it got its own direction from there. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that agency basically gave you like the foundation, right? The financial foundation, because it was like a
Yeah.
retainer to then be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, I can quit this and move to
Yeah.
that. Which then allowed you to kind of take all the things that you learned to be like, oh, well, now I'll go pitch, and now I have a bigger portfolio and more variety, and I can share this around, which is amazing. And it's great that one, you were talking to somebody, right? I think this is a key takeaway for those that are like, well, how do I start? Whatever it is like
Yeah.
talking about what it is that you're doing, right? So you happen to have this person, and you were like, oh yeah, I do that for fun. And they're like, oh, you ever thought
Yeah.
shooting for brands, or can you shoot for, you're like, I don't know, I could try, right? And
Yeah.
just kind of being open to the idea for that very first client, I think is so really important, because we're going to come back to that. Like, how did you get your first copywriting client? But,
Hmm. It's interesting
um,
actually.
so if you had been doing this for fun, kind of on the side, right, as like a hobby for yourself, photographing your stuff, you now pivot into making it a job. And I'm curious, did any of like the joy of making and creating and photographing, did any of that change now that you made it into a career?
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually that one of the main reasons I didn't like continued on that path, because creating for yourself and creating for clients is very different. And I don't say that creating for clients is not good. And it's really joyful. And, when you see your work published somewhere, it's like the best feeling. But for me, it didn't work out the way I would like. Like it somehow, like my creativity wasn't there when working for clients and with clients, the same way it was when I was doing like personal projects. And yeah, so that was like when I realized that it wasn't making me happy the way I thought it would. That's when I started thinking that maybe it's not the path for me. Like, yeah, it's different working like with clients and than like doing work for yourself and like as a hobby. It's very different.
Yeah, I find it really interesting when people say like, do what you're passionate about. because the reality is that you may not want to make money at that for that exact reason, right? Some of the joy sometimes can vanish, and doing things for yourself can really light you up. And you're like, I'm the creative person. I can make this however I want. There's really no brief, because if I want to change the brief,
Yeah,
that's okay.
exactly.
But if the client's like, I need it like this, I need it by this date, I need these images, it has to be X, Y, and Z, you're kind of like, oh. And sometimes having that box and container actually can ignite more ideas, because it allows you to create within a certain space, and like the sky's not the limit. And so sometimes having those restraints can actually be a blessing. But I get the other side of it, right? Where you're like, all the creativity has been sucked out of me. Like I don't see any of myself in this brief. So what started to change? I mean, other than you're not in your rhythm. You're like, I really enjoy doing this more as like a hobby or for myself or my personal, history rather than for clients. But how did that shift? Because I know that there's like an actual point in time, just by reading your about story, that actually happened that brought you back to writing.
Yeah, yeah. So at some point in, I think, 2022, I was good at what I was doing, and I had people asking me, how you showed that, and, for some like advice. And so that's when I started like thinking about offering more like educational content. And to do that, I had to create like sales pages and all that stuff. So I had to write. Um, so, I joined some like business and marketing courses, and, to learn how to like write this stuff, because writing in general is one thing, but writing like marketing and, promotional material is other, it's a whole different story. So I wanted to learn how to do that in order to be like good at, what I would create, and, to actually have people like work with me. And so that's when I started writing all this material for my digital products and all. And I was like, holy shit, this is great. Like I can write all these things. It was like like I was fascinated by this world. I didn't know like there were people who write for other people like in this like container. I knew about like magazines and blogs and articles and stuff, but working like and writing in this like online space for other creatives, and it was like life changing to see that like this is something that people actually do for work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like that's how I started thinking that maybe this path I was following wasn't for me, and maybe there's an other path like for me.
So I think a key point of what you were just saying, and this is something, it takes me back to like being in middle school again, where there used to be like career day and people would come and be like, oh, I'm a engineer or I'm a whatever. And my mom used to put this on at her middle school. And I remember going to her middle school and meeting people that had all these really interesting jobs that I never knew existed. Like there was a guy he created roller coasters, right? He was like the
Wow.
engineer that put the roller coasters together and figured out the G forces and how, tight or long the loops needed to be and stuff. And then she had a stock car driver, like that raced cars. He was a race car driver. And he would bring some of his pit crew there to talk about like being mechanics and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like you don't think about some of these jobs, that exist. Like we know about the doctor and the firefighter and
Yeah.
maybe like the pilot. There was a pilot there, I remember. But to your point of like being a copywriter or like an advertising copywriter, like the person that sits with the creative and figures out how do you distill that down to the words that go on the page or the sales page or the website or the big advertising poster that you see in transit, you don't necessarily think about that person.
Yeah.
And so being exposed to that and being like, oh, there's actually a role for that, is can be really eye opening. I mean, I remember meeting like my first, he was like a radio host who now is a podcaster who owned his own network. and I was a PA on a shoot. And I remember he came in, I'm like, oh my God, that's Roman Mars. Like, that's Roman Mars. Like, he voices that show I really love, 99 PI. Like, he's so cool. And it was like at that moment that I realized, A, he's real, and B, like, he makes a living being like a voice on a show.
Yeah.
Like, that was a little bit
How
mind blowing.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine you being kind of in that chorus going, wait a second, I could do this. Like, I see I have the skills. I know that was good writing.
Yeah.
But can I get paid to like do this?
That's exactly what happened in my brain. Like something shifted. Yeah. And clicked. Yeah. And I'm like, I can do that. Yeah.
If you compare that moment of like a teen, right? Having teachers say to you like, oh my God, you're a really amazing writer. You might think about being a writer, versus fast forward all these years now, and you're having kind of that epiphany moment again, but instead of it being an external, like, hey, have you thought about this? It's more of an internal, like, I can do this. Like, how do you compare and contrast those for like how you think today?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this like today. And yeah, there are some moments in life that you're not ready to hear something. It's like, when other people tell you something or you see other people do something, you can't see it for yourself. So it's like, okay, yes, they were saying like, I'm good at this. I knew I was good at this, but I couldn't see myself doing this. Like I couldn't know how to do that for myself. But now there was this moment that I realized that yes, this thing I'm good at. Now I can see how me, like as Danae, I can do it. Like, and I can really actually, have a profession doing that. So like sometimes people see something in you that you can see right away, or you have all these external voices tell you something that you don't know who to listen to actually. And there are so many voices, and then you can't hear your own voice, and you don't really know what you want because everyone says something different. So, and all these things sound interesting. So, you like that one and the other one, but you don't know what you truly want and would like to do. So that was the moment that I realized that this is actually what I like to do, and without having anyone tell me, no, you should be doing that or you're good at that. This is like how I want to like keep going, and yeah, like the work I
So
want
how
to
did you
do.
make that I guess the question about now listening internally but still doing work externally, which was the food photography,
Yeah.
how do you switch gears?
Yeah, so that was actually the hardest part, and it took a while. So it took like a whole year of me starting to think about copywriting and how I could do that, to actually pivoting my business to doing it. And actually in the interim, so I had some food photography clients and I stopped pitching, but I had some, some people find me through my website, and you know, and I had these discovery calls, and like I was sending some proposals, and I was like, I hope they say no because I don't want to do this. But also I didn't know how to do this other thing, copywriting. So I took a step back, and for a while I actually went to work again as a pharmacist in order to not have to, work like in food photography in order to live and make money to pay rent and everything. So because I wanted to support myself financially, and also I wanted to see how I could do this other thing work out. So it took a while, and also at first I wasn't able to admit even to myself that this thing that once was my dream is not my dream anymore.
Mm.
And because I felt like there was something wrong, that maybe it's a phase, and maybe like the next month or 2 months I will be good again with what I'm doing and I will feel good about it. But I realized that that was not the case, and I realized that I'm allowed to change my mind and to have different goals and different dreams. And that's life. You can't decide something one day and then just do this for the rest of your life without questioning everything. So yeah, it took a while to come to this realization. Um, but then, when I actually accepted that myself, I started talking with people about it. And it's fun how I actually got my first copywriting client because I knew her from food photography and she was a food photographer. And, we were talking again with talking. I got my first client just by talking about this thing I wanted to do, but wasn't doing it already. So that's how things started rolling from then on. Yeah.
I mean, we get back to the fact that, you just start talking about the thing that you wanted to do. And then someone's like, oh, hey, I
Yeah.
need that. Like, can you help me with that? And I love that because I think when we're still in the figuring out phase, or even if you have a new idea that you're bringing into your business that you're not quite sure how it's going to fit in, or whatever offer might be simmering, that you're like, I think I want to bring that, or I want to test that idea, but you've kind of kept it a little bit, behind closed doors, if you will. But it's like when you actually start talking to people about like, hey, like I have this idea, I want to do this thing, or I want to try that thing on, or it's amazing when people are like, they'll either say, I need the thing, or they'll say, I was just talking to so and so, and I think they
Yeah.
need the thing. So I think that importance of allowing yourself to kind of sift through that idea. And I love that you were very pragmatic about it. I know that doesn't always sound like a great quality sometimes to but you were very pragmatic of like, I don't want to continue doing food photography. I know I need time to build copywriting. So where's that foundation I can go back to that I know I can still have some freedom because like I have a job from, 9 to 5, if basically. Um, so I think it's like really smart. I give you huge kudos for like not just being like, I'm done with that, I'm starting this.
I mean, for some people that might work, but not for me. Yeah. And for me, things take time to simmer a bit. I'm not like that person that takes fast action. And I never was that person. And sometimes I've beaten myself up for not being that person. But once you know how you function as a person, and for me, I know I need some time, to see things through, to plan my next steps and think through what I'm going to do. Yeah, for me, it felt better to go back to a job that wouldn't require as much from me, because when you have a business like food photography, I had to be 100% in there. Like, in order to support myself financially, I had to work with clients, pitch, and all that. And when you are done with that part,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just continue doing it until you can do the other thing. Like, for me, it doesn't work like that. I know other people can do both things simultaneously, and it's perfect for them. But it all comes down to how like each person and their brain works. And for me, going back to a 9 to 5, as you said, it, I think, for me, was the smartest decision. And because
Yeah.
it took a huge burden off my shoulders, so I could focus on building the business I wanted without having to worry about financial things. Yeah,
Right.
so it was.
So how are you finding that transition now and kind of reestablishing yourself as a copywriter? Because most people know you from your previous life, right? So, I mean, this is something we've talked about in social life, is like, how do you kind of break free from that identity and build this new identity?
Yeah, so yeah, for sure, most of on social media, most of the people knew me as a food photographer. And I think what I could have done better was, while I was in the transition, to talk about it. Because now I talked about it with a few people that I knew, but not on my page. And then suddenly one day I said, now I'm a copywriter, and people were like, what? That's crazy. I think sharing the process is the best thing to do, because people, the people you are connected with, they cheer you on and want to follow your journey. So it would be easier for me to have this thing documented. Um, But now that I didn't do that, you know, I found it hard to start talking about the thing that I'm doing now, like copywriting, in order to not confuse my people, the people that knew me before. And I actually found it hard. And what I like tried to do was to share the process even after like it happened, so to document the journey. And that's something that we discussed like in social life. Like I wanted to figure out how to share like the whole pivot and the journey from food photographer to copywriter with my audience, and also what value this would bring to them, because I think a lot of people are in this like phase that want to not necessarily change their whole business, but as you said, add a new offer or something, and they don't know how to introduce that to their like audience. But I think the best thing to do is to actually like document it and share the process like with your people. I don't know
Yeah,
if this
share that
answered the
messy middle.
questions, or
No, I mean,
I hold it a whole
I,
different path.
no, I think it's, it's very truthful. Sometimes we don't share the transition or like, the butterfly, the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. Like we're not sharing that
Yeah.
cocooned moment of thought. And sometimes we're just like, I arrived, here I am, look at my beautiful
Yeah, I'm the
wings,
butterfly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think that they're like, but to your point, like there's an opportunity now to go back and share that incubation period, right? Where you were like, hey, I know you knew me when, and this might feel like a stretch. However, this is how from A to B, like it's not that far of a reach because like you said, you were writing bids, you were already writing copy, you were already showing up on social, figuring out what to say, you're already figuring out how to sell your, your photography. You already put a website together. And even though that might have been minimal copy at that time, it still was copy that had to translate. And so I think it's interesting to look back and be like, oh, I should have shared the messy middle. But sometimes when we're in the messy middle, we don't want to share it
Yeah, for sure we don't.
because
Yeah, we just
it's messy.
yeah. Yeah, and we've learned that we can't show the messy parts. We have to show like the end result. This is what we've learned all these years, and I think more like our brains are wired to just talk about the good stuff and the perfect and the complete ones, and not the messy ones or the hard ones or the shitty ones. Yeah, so that was, I would like to have shared that, but I think even now, like I can share it even now because I think it's helpful for people to see there are these parts for everyone. Because like when we see someone on social media, and what they present is what we think it's their reality, but they don't present like their whole reality. They present a piece of that, and most probably the best piece, or a good one at least. And we can see the other parts that are behind that reel or that carousel or whatever. And I think it's important for people to know that I struggle with that as well. Like all of us struggle with something, and I think it's also a connection point, and like a point that show people that everyone is actually a human being with their problems and struggles. And I think it's a good thing to start sharing more of that, like online, like to a point that we feel
Yeah.
good about, of course, but it's good to show people that we're just people.
We're just people. We're just people trying to figure it out. I mean, that leans into kind of like tying into this like leadership idea of what you just said, which is it doesn't have to be, we don't have to show like the perfect ending. We can show up and be that leader that is a little bit chaotic. Or as you said, like, I need to take time to think about this. I needed to think about how to put a website together. What offerings am I really going to have? What makes you a valuable copywriter versus someone else, right? And how do you then translate that and talk about that? And that takes time, to your point. And so now I would say what I would mirror that back to you and say, like, what have you discovered since you didn't share the messy middle? Like, and now you're at this point where you're like, okay, here I am the butterfly humming around. Um,
Yeah.
Looking back, like what have you discovered along the way? What are those values of a copywriter that you are really excited about, and then stuff that you would kind of warn people about?
What people crave right now is to see other people. And in terms of like copywriting and how I use it in my own work is like I try to show like for the person I write for, we need to see their personality and we need their personality to be reflected on the copy on their website or sales page or whatever. And one thing I value like really like the most is like this like personality and showing your human side. And because all these years I think like for the past like 4 to 5 years I think the online space everyone was showing the highlight reel and all those marketing and all those strategies that weren't like talking to people. They were just frameworks and you have to do this and create that funnel and you were talking to someone's brain. And people used to buy stuff very easily, but now this has shifted and people want to connect and they want to know you and know like what you stand for. And I think marketing, like we are at the point that marketing has shifted a lot and will continue to shift towards a more like human way of like talking to people and connecting with people rather than just selling and trying to convince someone to buy. And that's a huge value of mine to when I write for someone to use like the human voice and to actually speak to their soul rather than trying to sell them like this thing that they might not need even. When like marketing is like a way of connecting and a way of sharing with people with someone who needs something why they need it. It's not about convincing someone to buy something they don't need. Like this used to happen, but I think now it's like we are at a time that this isn't going to happen anymore. And we have to adapt the way we write and the way we communicate in our messaging and everything to that new way of marketing, let's say, to the marketing that talks to people rather than, you know, talking at people and trying to convince.
Yeah, I think this is especially coming off. I mean, we're recording this the beginning of December, and we're coming off of Black Friday, right? And we're coming off of like one of the biggest sales weeks of the year for a lot of companies. And so, to your point of like talking at people or making things feel scarce, or just other not savory sales tactics, right? That people use to sell you their wares, like you need another vacuum or you need another pot, or you must have this. What did I see when I was out at? Like you need this charm for your water bottle. Now I don't know who needs charms for your water bottle. I think that's like the most ridiculous thing I've ever
That's
seen.
crazy.
But this gets back to this idea of the human connection. And I do 100% agree with you. I think people are getting a little more discerning about who I buy from, who do they stand for, what is the ethical things that, are going on behind that company. I know within our own little sphere, we were talking about like Meta and like all of the books that have come out about like what are they doing and the money that they make from criminal activity, which is like kind of insane. For those that are wondering, that's unlicensed gambling, is a lot of that stuff. And like they make 1.4 like trillion on that, or pay fines of 1.4 trillion, and they make 4 trillion on it. Anyway, it's kind of mind boggling. There's a whole article in Rutgers. I'll link it in the show notes. But we were talking about these kind of ethical things. And I think one of the poster childs of this, and rightly so, is like Patagonia tends to come to the top when people start talking about ethical companies doing things for good. And I think when we talk about who is the person behind the brand and what is their voice, I think it's more almost the most important thing now when writing what you're doing.
Yeah, and yeah, Patagonia is a great example because they did the exact opposite of what other brands on their space were doing. And they said like in their famous ad, like I think it was a Black Friday ad, but they said, don't buy this, or we have like this made by consuming this amount of, I don't know, water or something, and they listed like what went into creating this, and they said like don't buy it if you don't need it or something. And I think that's a brilliant way to connect with people who care about not, you know, like be that like consumer that buys things they don't need, and with they care for the environment, and this is the way of connecting with like-minded people. And I think like the whole goal of marketing is to connect with your people and the people who value the things that you and your brand value. So I think it's important to show these qualities of you and your brand, and not just say, I have this product, go and buy it. It's like a whole different game, and it's it's a lot more personal, let's say, than we think it is. It's not like buy that vacuum. Why should I buy this vacuum? Or why do I need it? And what is it made for? Even for some people like who care about the environment and the sustainability and the ethical, things, they want to know like what was like used to create this thing, or where it is sourced from. We want to know these things, and we want to know like the origin story, why this brand like um, performs like this and does this stuff and sell this stuff, and why did they create this stuff. We want to know the whole story, in order to connect with the brand and the owner, and eventually buy from them.
I do think it creates a deeper connection as well, right? Like to your point of if I know where it came from, and if I am a consumer that wants to be discerning and wants to know the brand story and wants to go deeper, then I'm going to be more invested in your company. And I'm probably going to then share that amongst my friends, my circles, my world. So if and when you do have that big sale, I'm like, oh my God, that is the best fill in the blank. That
Yeah.
is the best copywriter I know. That's the best backpack I have. That's the best whatever light company ever. To get back to photography. But I mean, it just makes me think of like who who like in your world would you look at and say like, I want to write copy for companies like X, who right now, like what's somebody or like whether it's an individual entrepreneur or a company or
Mhm.
brand that you would love to be like, I want to write your copy.
Okay. You know, I the most important thing for me, like what the people who I connect with, like creatives, artists, like photographers, they are the people, and people who have something to share, and have a message they want to get out to the world, and they care about what they say and not just say whatever it is just to make sales. That's the people I want to work with. I want like of a specific person. I
I
can't
mean, you
think
could
of
make them up.
any. So I would like, so the people I like to work with, and I would like to work more like with, are people who care about what they have to share with the world, and they do have something to tell people, and they have a message to get out there that's important to them and that's important to other people. I don't, there are so many people saying, like, you see, I don't know, two photographers, for example, and you see the exact same things on their like website, and these are two different like people. So why would they say the same things? Because I know this is what we've been taught, and all the marketing strategies and all the templates and everything tell you to say this and just fill in the blanks. But I know there are people who are tired of just filling someone else's blanks, and they want to write their whole story like on their own and with the help of like someone who could write it for them. And that's the people who I would like to work with, and the brands. And for me, like brands who have some personality, brands with humor and who share like, the process behind things. And, sometimes like things flop, and, brands share that too. And these are like, these are the kinds of brands that I would like to work with, and ethical ones for sure. Like personally, I don't buy into the whole consumerism thing, and I try not to buy from like these huge brands that, I know have exploited people and they pay nothing. I try to stay away from that, and I would like to work with brands that are ethical and, that work by hand, and, they respect what they're doing and the people and the environment. I know this is a huge
Yeah.
reply to your question,
No, but
but
I mean,
yeah.
but I think this also gets back to figuring out like who your customer is, right? So not only is it what is going on in the market and how do you differentiate yourself as a copywriter, but it's also figuring out like you don't want to just work for anybody. You're not going to be like, "Oh yeah, this XYZ company came to me. They sound great. Like I'll write their copy." And of course, like money aside, right? Like we're not talking about that, but like if you got to pick and choose, then you're going to say, these are the companies I'm going to go after, or these are the individuals I'm going to go after. And I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this, but I do think NGOs, nonprofits that are working
Yeah.
in the various sectors that you're interested in could be also a great opportunity for you to write for, because one, they need good copy. Right.
Yeah.
And you have this flair with humor. Like you are very funny in your copy. And I do think that sometimes, like in the nonprofit world, it can be kind of heavy. Right. And so be able to connect with people through humor and lightheartedness, but also share the humanistic stories could be a real advantage for you. So I don't know if you've thought about that, but that just like popped into my head when you were talking about like the
Yeah.
different types of companies you would like to work for. But one of the things I love on your website, on your about page, if you scroll about halfway down, you get to this little like the quiz, your quiz that's on here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of brilliant because what you just said about number one is the about page. Does it start with about your name? Meet Shelly, like meet your name, and then, or does it start with our story? And it like
Yeah.
is so true. Like I was like, oh, I think my about page starts like that.
Oh, I have to check that out. Yeah. And especially like big companies, it's like our story. It's like everyone has that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like the title, but it's like, what does it say
Yeah.
after that? Does it get into the meat of it? Does it take 17 paragraphs to say what you could say in two? Does it have that tone and texture that it needs to have? And does it have both words and imagery? And I would say that those need to be like a nice pairing, because a brand story, for those that don't want to watch your 2 to 4 minute mini video, still needs to be there in writing, and it needs to be clear and succinct and connecting. And that's why you need a copywriter.
Yeah, for sure. And that's very true what you said about the story. Because yes, I love like websites that have this video of like the story and how things were created. But also, so we are talking to a lot of different types of consumers, and some people might like to watch videos, some people might like to read like actual copy on the page, and it's important to have both. And also it's important to not have like huge text, like because I have seen like some brands having like paragraphs and paragraphs, and like what to even read, like like I don't care. Okay, let's like go to the other page. And yeah, especially in like big companies and non-profits, as you said, this like because they have a mission to share, and they use all these words to talk about it because it is important. And then people probably don't read the whole thing because they see these huge like chunks of text and they're like, I can't read that right now. And then this is how they lose people that could potentially work with them and be part of this huge like and important goals they have. So yeah, I think yeah, these are like very important things, especially on the about page, because that's when the
Yeah.
connection happens
And I think
most of the time.
to the point about like, if you do have a lot to say, that's okay, but maybe that's not the place to do it. And
Yeah.
maybe there is a better place to do it, right? Like companies do annual reports or they do a sustainability report, these kind of longer, meatier pieces that would have more writing. Or you could always do a white paper, right? Where like, or you get really clever and you do some real fun like UX user experience things where people can click around and there's good text and it might take you from point A to point B and maybe it floats around and maybe it's it's like a choose your own adventure of like where you end up, and you can get really fun and creative with it. But I totally agree. I have been on plenty of those pages where you get there and you're like, wow, I just did like 3 scrolls and it keeps going.
Yeah. And I think it's
uh,
important to share the story, but the way you share it, and I mean, in terms of like how it looks on the page is important as well. Like as you said, you may want to share this on your website, and you probably should, but the way they are presented, like in a visual way, all as well, is very important.
Yeah. And to your point of visualization, I mean, I think looking at your website, so for those that don't know, it's writingpajamas.com. And that is no in. There's no in there. It's just writingpajamas.com. It's very visual. You have a lot of color. You use, different style, like for headers and different weighted texts. And, you block things out in a very visual way. That's not just like text upon text upon text upon text. And it's a very fun website to go through and click around and see the different sections. And so it just brings in that visual eye that you have with this amazing other asset that you have, which is writing. And I'm super jealous. I mean, I don't know about other people, but like I envy that website. That's an amazing website. So
Thank you for
kudos to
saying
you
that.
on that. It's very fun. It's, very clever. There's little moving parts and your humor comes out. I love your little writing, like emoji, like girl with the pencil. Like it's very fun. She's very cute. She shows up in different places. But what's kind of the next iteration as you work towards getting to be a toddler in your world of copywriting, right? I mean, you've kind of just moved into this. You've figured it out. You've got a landing space. You've got a few clients. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so like for 2026, I have lots of plans and goals. I really value that not everything should be behind the paywall, and this version of marketing we're talking about and using your personality, I would like to help people do that even without having to hire like a copywriter. I'm planning on creating some like free offers about that and how you can show up being more like of yourself. Most of the strategies we've been taught so far. So I have some products like this that will come in 2026, but also I would like to expand my copywriting, like like the clients I work with, and work with more leaders and and people who would like to shape communities and start movements and do something different for their space. And I would love to work with this kind of people. I'm going towards and connecting with these kinds of people because I think it's very powerful to want to make a change, and I would like to be a part of like that change. Yeah.
I love it. Write all the campaign slogans and help them get their messaging out there. And we need more change makers. I mean, there's not enough. And I think we are on the cusp of where we're going to see some really big change coming in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, the question that I've kind of waited on, so we can really dive into it right before we wrap, because that's always the exciting part, right? Is what do you think AI is doing to our writing?
Oh my
Like,
God.
when I go to our good friend Chat and I ask
Yeah.
Chat, hey, write me an about page. Like, here's some things about me. Or I ask Claude, my good buddy Claude, we're like besties. Hey Claude, like, what do you think? I want to stay highly connected. I want it to be humorous. Give me some emotion, even though normally I ask you to strip out all the emotion. And it kicks me back something. Like, you're a copywriter. Like, what,
Yeah.
what, what, what? Tell me. Bring it on.
Yeah, but first I want to ask you the things that like it takes you back with, what do you feel about it? How is it? Do you want to use it, or do you feel it fulfilled what you asked? Because for me, it's like I said this thing and you did this other thing, and no matter how well you prompt it will do its own thing. I don't know.
It depends, right? My favorite answer for those that know me, like I will say, it depends. Um, like for instance, I had it help me write an email yesterday because I felt like my email was too wordy and I felt like my email was too convoluted and I was getting in the weeds and I really just needed to hit these like 3 points, but I needed them to be clear. So I already had the rough draft of the email. And then I threw it into the AI and I said, help me. This is the goal of the email. This is who it's going to. These are the 3 points it needs to hit. Here's the rough draft I have. Tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what's working and help me with better transitions. And what it kicked back was 98%
Hmm.
good, right? Because guess what? I fed it
Yeah, exactly.
90% of
You did
it.
the hard part. You didn't ask it to write it for you. You gave it your draft, and then it was like more like, I would say, proofreading than doing it for you. And that's a huge
Right.
difference. Yeah. So I think the thing with AI is, you know, like it's something that's trained with some strategies and so many things. And I think I think it can't replace people who write, and that's because first of all, it's not human, of course. No matter how like emotion you ask from it can't give it to you. Like it doesn't give you the stories because you have the stories, and you have like the experiences, the stories, everything. It's something that someone has, like a person, a human, and no AI or robot or machine or nothing can't write that for you. It's hard to rely only on AI for like writing purposes. And of course it helps, but I think the way it's trained is to produce this language, this like marketing language and all that we want to move away from. And it keeps feeding us with the same things that are soulless, frankly. So I think what you did like with your email, I think that's the way to approach it. It's like a tool to help us and not a tool to outsource our thinking and creativity and our power. And I think
Yeah.
that's the mistake a lot of people make, is that they open ChatGPT or Claude and say, I want to write this email, write it for me. And they give it some points, like I want to say this, and I want to lead to this, and then add this CTA at the end, like the call to action. And then it gives like something that has no emotion, nothing. And you read it back and I don't like it wasn't what I wanted. But it can't give you what you wanted because you just asked it to write something from you. You didn't think anything about what, like how they should feel, how you feel about it, some thoughts that you have. So I think the problem is that we outsource a lot of our power to it and don't use it as a helping hand, let's say. We use it as our brain, and it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I know that from that storytelling perspective, you like nailed it. You have the stories. The AI can't get in your brain and like pull out your experiences. So I do think you can use it to prompt you to say, give me prompts to help me think of times that I can pull stories from. So for those that know The Moth, which is international program that is all about true storytelling. A friend of mine just bought me a deck of cards, and every card is like to help you think of real stories in your life of certain things that have happened. And we were playing with these cards, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't thought about this since like it happened when I was like, 18. Like, wow, I totally forgot about that. So I do think that there is a way to have, whether it's these cards or whether it's using AI to help prompt, get these stories, get you to think about the stories, so that way you can insert your personality into it. I think is spot on to your point of like, AI can't do that. The other thing I notice time and time again, AI cannot do humor or sarcasm.
Yeah.
It just can't.
Yeah, it fails. Yeah, yeah.
It like
Yeah.
miserably.
Like,
So
yeah, it's good because it makes you laugh, but yeah, doesn't.
but not in the right way. It makes
Yeah,
you
yeah,
laugh
for
the
sure.
wrong way, where you're
Yeah.
like, wow, that is not funny.
Very bad. Yeah.
um, and I think we also forget that AI is not current. So the stuff that it's trained on is anywhere between 2 to 3 years old. And it's not
Exactly.
looking at like the current situation that we're sitting in. So, if you're trying to write something that is topical or quote unquote trending, or, a headline in news right now, AI is not going to be super helpful for you.
Yeah. And I love what you said about you can prompt it to prompt you in a way to help you come up with ideas. And I think that's a great way because, and like the card that you said, that's brilliant. But you can't use it to think for you. Like it doesn't work like that. And as you said, it's not trained. It's trained like with models like of 2 or 3 years back. So of course it can help you right now. And the more like I think now like we progress very fast in the online, the marketing, the selling space. And so far, I don't think it can catch up to that in terms of training. Even if you train it with the current things, like in 2 months, the things will be different. So again, it will be outdated. Like you can't use it like to think for you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think, what have I used it for recently? And I could probably sit here and look at all my prompts, but the email I just did yesterday, I did put together a Black Friday sale with Rachel from Two Love Studio, and we were selling some templates. And we did use AI to help come up with, like, what is an easy lift sequence? How many emails should we send out? What's some, we looked for just certain ideas for those emails. And of course, I didn't like any of those ideas, but they were enough to make me go, the concept of this email, for email 2, let's say, should be something of a story, should show how this would be used, or a case study. And I'm like, okay, well, what's a case study? And then I could sit down and I can write the case study. And again, I could use AI more as like a line editor or a proofer to say, like, clean up my grammar, clean up my misspellings. Kind of how I used to use Grammarly a lot back, just a few years ago. But it's like, then it can say, oh, this is a great story. Let me help you with the transitions. My weakness in writing is transitions. And so I always am asking AI, like, help me with the transitions here. Or can we tighten this up just a little bit? Like, this feels long. Like, this feels like the 7 scrolls on the email. I want this to be like maybe one page and not 5 pages. So I think that, to your point, you can't replace human interaction, and you can't replace the way that we think, but you can use it as a tool to help push you farther.
Yeah, and I think that's why it was created to help people, not replace them. I don't know where it will go, but yeah, I think like as a tool, it's a great tool to use to help with all that stuff. And also, even when it gives you bad ideas, because it most certainly will, and most ideas are bad. The thing is that these bad ideas can help you. It can give you a bad idea, and then based on that, you can think, oh wait, if I use this part of this idea, maybe I can do that. And then you can get a good idea out of a bad idea, like that you wouldn't have thought if you didn't ask. But I think what we have to do is to actually train our brain to think and to be creative, because I think most people have outsourced a lot of their power to that, and they lose some of their thinking power and their creativity. And I think that's the worst thing that can happen to someone, to not be able to think freely and create, like using their brain. And because you want to think about something and you say, oh, let me pop like this question to ChatGPT, and it will give it to me, like it will give me the answer. And I think that's the worst way of using it, because this way it's actually using you're not using it. Like, I think it's really the worst thing you can do is to outsource your brain power and creativity to that.
I'm purposely pausing here because I think that is like mic drop moment, right? Is handing over that power and getting, I don't want to say lazy, but what else are you going to call it? Like, you're getting lazy. And therefore that muscle, it's like if you don't work out or you don't lift anything, right? That muscle is going to atrophy. And your creative muscle, the way that you pull out those stories, the way that you make those connections, like those neurotransmitters aren't going to fire anymore. And you're literally going to be like sitting in front of the computer going, I don't know, like, let me just ask chat. Let me just ask Claude or whoever the new latest and greatest is going to be. You're going to ask what's Gemini. I'm going to ask Gemini to write it for me. So I love that you just said, like, you've got to think first before you input. Don't input and then it thinks for you. It thinks, and I put that in quotes, for you. Oh man, this has been so good. I can't wait for people to dive into this. For folks that want to follow along and see your amazing writing, where can they find you?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at Writing Pajamas without in. And also it's like PA pajamas, not PY, because I know like 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 UK, I think it's PY. I'm not sure. So it's Writing Pajamas, and it's the same for my website. It's writingpajamas.com. And yeah, I try to share a lot of things on Instagram and stories as well. So yeah, we can connect over there.
Awesome. Well, if you're someone looking for a copywriter and you just want to dive in or ask questions, I totally recommend hitting you up in the DMs. All the links to your website will be in the show notes to make it a little bit easier for people just to kind of click on over, get right in and follow along. I am so happy we got to get together and see one another. Normally we're just chatting in the interwebs in our little circle. But it's been really fun to get to know you a bit more and have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great time with you, and yeah, loved seeing your face for once.
Well, we won't make this the last time. We'll have to do this again and see how things progress and see how 2026 unfolds for you, and get an insight for the fun companies that you've gotten to work for, and hopefully insert some humor into some of their stories. Because folks, you want to have a good laugh, you can head over to her writing and check out writingpajamas.com, and you get to see everything that Danae is up to over there. We're going to put the fire out for now, and I will see you again real soon. Thanks, everyone, for being here. If you want to keep the conversation going, drop us an email or DM us on Instagram over at creativecamp.pro. You can support the show by buying us a coffee. Of course, we'll use it for chai. You can sign up for our weekly-ish camp email, where we drop nuggets and share insights of what's going on here, as well as around the industry. We'd love a review, of course. If you're loving the show, drop us a comment on Spotify or on YouTube, or leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. The best compliment you can give is to share the show with someone else. Hit the share in any of the platforms and send it over to your friend. Tell them what you loved about the show or a particular nugget that you took away. We're here almost every week, and we'd love to have your recommendation on who you would love for us to interview. Thanks for being here. We'll see you soon around the fire.